Hey guys, Fire here from InDepth Gaming. I'm bringing you another game review. This time we're checking out Glam's incredible run, Escape from Dukha. This game is developed by Three-Legged Egg and published by Red Art Games and releases on March 30th, 2022. Unfortunately, we don't have the price yet for this game, so I'm gonna kind of show you what I think about it, let you see the beginning of the game. It's be a little similar footage to what you saw if you checked out our early gameplay preview. But yeah, just wanted to show off the start of the game. The game's pretty simplistic. It's a platformer where you have these short one-screen stages that you have to go from one end to the other without dying. If you do hit any obstacle that obviously you shouldn't hit, you'll just get reset to the very beginning. Now, the game's also spread around with various collectibles that you can earn. By these little like CD discs that you'll probably see here on some of the levels start to pop around, and the game's mechanics are pretty straightforward. This is one of those little like disc things that I'm talking about here. They're pretty straightforward. You can swing, use your hair kind of like a rope, and jump and dash around different obstacles to get to the end. As the game progresses, you'll start to have opportunities to see like enemies pretty much after the first chapter, but the first chapter that you're going to be introduced to is pretty straightforward, and also where you can probably more easily get the achievement that the game features for beating an entire chapter section without dying at all. So we'll see if we can't figure that out here on this kind of playthrough, but it looks like we just died. So probably not going to happen. But the game is pretty straightforward though as you're playing. The controls, you move around with your left analog stick, you hit A to jump, and then X is how you'll kind of use your little rope swing ability with your hair to move around different levels. The levels are extremely straightforward as, you know, you just go from one end to the other. Sometimes they're going to ask you to do a couple other things as far as like your movement around, but I don't think anything's going to be too overly difficult. The mechanic between swinging and then jumping after you swing can be a little bit of a stressful experience to figure out how to get working right the first time, and I think you'll probably struggle with it and get a little frustrated. But once you kind of figure that out, that's about the hardest part in this game. And it gets progressively easier as you start to better understand the mechanics and how the different enemies interact and work, and you can defeat them. As far as the levels and playstyle of the game, it's extremely straightforward, as you know, it's just complete the objectives. Now, the parts that do get challenging in this game are just figuring out the little puzzles, where to wait and where not to wait to do certain things. And then as well as the collectibles, those are going to be challenging for, I think, most people to figure it out. So you might want to kind of resource an achievement guide with some help in figuring out how to get all the collectibles if you can't quite figure out how to navigate an entire area. Most of the enemies are pretty easy to figure out, but you're introduced to them at a nice slow pace. And that's something that I do enjoy with this game. You're not going to be overwhelmed in any sense, and the game paces itself very well with introducing you to new mechanics and things in the game. So it's definitely a strong point for me there. When games don't just throw everything to you all in one go, you can kind of pace yourself as you start to learn new mechanics and stuff. As far as platformers go, I'm not going to say this is by any means like a favorite platformer of mine. Most of the stuff in this game can be a little frustrating, and if you're not used to platformers, I don't think it's extremely new user friendly. I think most people will struggle and have to figure out ways to get things done, and you honestly might see a lot of people just give up because the frustration that kind of sets in there. And it is what it is when it comes to skill and dependability when it comes to beating games. But I don't think it's something that will stop most people, but it will give a challenge to people who aren't necessarily familiar with platform style games. Now, most of the chapters are pretty short and straightforward. You're looking at around 10 to 15 levels, some a little more with what's there, and some are a little more challenging with what's there as well. You'll probably spend a lot of your time just trial and erroring to figure out the solutions on a level, and then just the frustrations with trying to progress through to get from one end to the other. What I do like is some of the levels do introduce some rather unique mechanics. As you can see here, like the weighted pendulum that kind of has you maneuvering and figuring things out is definitely something that I enjoy, because you have to really time all your sequences and get everything just kind of just right to be able to do that. And then you're also going to have to figure out the best opportunities to beat certain areas with all your various timing. And it just kind of works for me with this game. And I think that's something that's pretty cool, trying to figure out and understand really how everything works. And just it's a rewarding feeling when you first figure out how puzzles work, and at the same time, it's also very frustrating when you don't figure out how they work. So, the game gives that right amount of yes, I did it, and oh my gosh, this is the most frustrating thing in the world. All in kind of the same retrospective ecosystem of how the game works. Um, Overall, though, I don't think the game's bad by any means. It's going to definitely frustrate new players and beginners alike if you're not used to these styled genres. I do think that my favorite parts with this game are just these like puzzle-based sequences, but it's also the sense of this game does require you to figure out how a lot of the different effects work in the game, because you're gonna have to get far into the game. It's not a simple, straightforward, one and done kind of game. You're gonna spend time figuring out how different levels and things work to get from one end to the other. As you can see here, I'm having to really hit perfect good timed sequences to be able to go from one point to the other, and for me that works. I really do enjoy that mentality of figuring out how things work and understanding the different mechanics in a game, and it hits some good notches there. It's like I said, overall though, not my favorite, most exciting platformer that I've played, but nonetheless a fun, enjoyable platformer. I like that I can just do short little like micro bursts of levels and just take my time when I am playing. The biggest downside to me though, like I was saying, is just it can feel very rewarding at times and very unrewarding at the same time when you're doing certain other things. So that is a thing to keep in mind based on your enjoyment level with like platformers and puzzles. The more I sit and talk, the more I'm like, no, this is more puzzle platformer than anything. But yeah, outside of that though, it's kind of my thoughts on the game. I think it's worth picking up if you want something a little different and haven't got a platformer recently, but I definitely think there's better platformers out there. This one will take time, and you'll have to spend a good bit of effort figuring out the levels and kind of getting everything done. So if you want to not quit completion as far as achievements wise, this game I guess would hit that mark, but at the same time, it's not going to be, your kind of go all be all, man, this is the perfect game for me mentality. But outside of that, though, that's kind of my thoughts. If you have a differing opinion, please let me know down below in the comments. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll kind of customize a character, show you some of the weird wonkiness. You can kind of go here. It gives you one achievement, and outside of that, there's nothing really else to do. But yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you next time.